This is part one of the witness testimony on day one of the poison husband murder trial. If you have not been following the case, I'll give you a recap. As always, please, a major trigger warning. This is Corey Richens, and she currently faces murder as well as attempted murder charges for allegedly taking the life of her husband, Eric, back in March of 2022. Now, according to the state, they are stating that, well, she was struggling financially in her business. She owed more than $4 million. She was tapped out, and she knew that if she divorced Eric due to a prenup, she wouldn't get much. And that, well, she felt that the best way to start a new life from scratch was to take his life and take his funds, business interests, life insurances, all of that. And what's interesting about all of this is that if you recognize her, could be because she has been interviewed previously because she wrote a children's book to help her children cope with the loss of their father and hopefully help other children cope with a loss of a parent as well. Now, the defense is stating absolutely not. That is not true. She is innocent. She has never changed her story. And in fact, she knew that before he died, her sister was assigned to be over his trust. He had put all of his assets in a trust, and the sister was managing all of it. So if anything happened to him, she would have to deal with litigation with the sister. And well, she has always maintained her story that she loved him, that she would never take his life, and unfortunately he was addicted to drugs. And that, well, the family members are just obsessed with blaming someone for his death. Let's get into the witnesses. The first witness is going to be Eric's father. His name is Eugene Richens. Now, Eugene shares that he was very proud of his son. He talked to him every single day and saw him multiple times a week. Eric had a fun, loving personality. Everybody loved him, and he was an excellent father. He shares that on March 4th, he receives a call early in the morning from Corey stating that Eric was not breathing. He arrived later on at between 4:15 in the morning. Keep in mind that at 3:21 is when 911 was called. Katie was there. First responders were there as well as his daughter, which is Katie, I'm sorry. And then Corey was also there and Corey's mom. He shares that he stayed until about 10 to 10:30, but that when he arrived, his daughter Katie was the one that went up to him and let him know that Eric had passed and that Corey really didn't speak to him. Between the time of when his funeral happened and the medical examiner released the cause of death, between that time, he doesn't remember the exact date, Corey told him that she had spoken with the ME and that the ME shared that Eric died from the same thing his mother, Linda, died from when COVID was happening. Linda actually died from a fungus in her lungs. So at this point, the state asked, what struck you from that particular comment? And he shares, well, I called my daughter Katie immediately. Katie then calls the ME, and the ME shares that he's never spoken with Corey. And the fact of the matter is that Eric did not have at all any of the same symptoms that Linda had when she had that fungus in her lungs. Now, they go over handwriting samples. Keep in mind that she's also being accused of fraud because according to the state, she signed up for life insurance for her husband and fraudulently signed it on his behalf. The next witness is Katie Richens, which is his sister. Katie immediately shares that they were extremely close, that they did everything together, that they talked about everything with each other, and that in fact the home that he purchased used to be her house and she actually sold it to him. She also goes on to share that on the day that all of this happened, she receives a call and she immediately started screaming. And her husband didn't know what was happening. Her husband thought that she was talking about her daughter because her daughter was sick and that she was screaming that she's not breathing, but actually she meant he's not breathing. When the husband finally realizes who she's talking about, they immediately go to the home. She says that Corey was dressed, put together, had her hair up and everything, seemed perfectly fine and did not even talk to her the entire time that she was there. When the dad arrives, they tell the dad what happened. Of course, the dad collapses and that they then wheel him out of the home. And immediately they were advised that they were going to be doing an autopsy to find the cause of death. Now, the sister, Katie, says that the son saw when their dad was wheeled out. And so she immediately tells Corey, I think the kids need to know, because Corey did not want to tell them. So Katie's like, they just saw them wheel out their dad, they need to know they're extremely upset. So she sits the kids down and tell them that their dad is not coming back. The kids, of course, get upset. She runs upstairs behind her nephew, and her nephew is just extremely upset. And her nephew, she was trying to comfort him, but he didn't want her. He wanted his mom. So she goes back downstairs and she tells him, please, you need to go talk to your son. He doesn't want me. He's extremely upset. He wants his mom. She goes up there, and then she says that shortly thereafter, a fiance of someone arrives that apparently had something to do with the sale of the house and everything. And that she right then and there starts talking about, yes, go ahead and let's move forward with the sale of the house. And I'll probably sell this one too. And that she tells her immediately, I know you are not talking right now after my brother just got wheeled out of here. You are not talking about closing on this house today. Not the mansion that she had just purchased. She was supposed to close on that particular day as she was supposed to flip. And that she looked at her very matter-of-factly and said, yes, I am. The money's already been invested. This has already been signed off. We need to move forward. She says she was very business-like, very nonchalantly. She also goes on to state that Eric used to call her all the time. Anytime he would get hurt, he would call her. And they asked her, did you know that he, was on drugs or taking any pills or anything? And she said, from what I understand, he only took a leave. And well, one of the reasons is because our mother was a drug counselor, and she made it a point to teach us to stay away from prescription medication because of the things that she used to see because she was a counselor. Now, they also bring up the prenup, and she actually read the prenup before the wedding, his sister did, and that pretty much that if they divorced, she would not be getting anything in relation to the business that he had, because the business had gained a significant amount of interest, and I believe it was over $2 million. They then bring up the fact that Ashton, one of her sons, had found his dad's Apple Watch and wanted the Apple Watch. And she said that within seconds, Corey took the Apple Watch and completely wiped it and gave it back to them. And she was like in shock because she was like, why would you wipe all of this and then give it to him? Like, the son really wanted to have his dad's Apple Watch. We don't know why she would delete it. Maybe it had adult information in there. They continued talking about the fact that they then, I believe it was like a day later, start planning the funeral. And that they went in there, and they've always known that he wanted to be buried, specifically where this was something that was already planned, who was going to speak, all of that. She said that they're there for hours planning everything, and all of a sudden, Corey's mom speaks, and she's like, yeah, but, he's going to be cremated. And Corey kind of looks at her and goes, yeah, that's right. He's supposed to be cremated. So the sister looks at her and says, Corey, we just spent all this time planning a funeral. Why are you talking about cremating him? If, we're planning a whole funeral. And then she looked at her and said, well, I just thought that the cremation would happen, even if you had the funeral. She also shares that she had mentioned the fact that she was going to sell the home, the fact that she was going to run his business, and exactly who was going to run the business on his behalf. And that is when they clarified that as the sister being the trustee, she really had no say. She couldn't sell the home without her approval. And furthermore, she had no say in the business. She gained no interest, no nothing, because the sister was the one that was managing that trustee. Now, in the next video, I am going to go over the defense's cross-examination, and then we'll go into next witnesses, because keep in mind that the defense makes it clear that to them it is due to the sister's obsession with finding someone to blame for the death of Eric, and that they have created this entire case and just making up things along the way and causing conflict from day one. Talk to you soon.